Welcome to the Bill Cartwright Show with Steve Cohen. Our special guest today is head coach of the University of San Francisco Dons, Todd Golden. Todd, welcome.
I appreciate you for having me on, Bill. It's great to be here with you guys.
We are very excited. We are going to go back, that I'd love to do, and I want you to talk about where you grew up, I know, and talk about your mom and dad.
Easy enough. Born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Both of my parents were born and raised on the East Coast. My dad in New York, just about 20 minutes north of the city in White Plains. My mom was actually born and raised in Toms River, New Jersey. So I have a lot of East Coast blood. And, my father went to UMass a year behind Julius Erving and a year ahead of Rick Pitino, and played on the freshman basketball team. Graduated from there, went to Emory Law, and then actually moved out to Phoenix in 1975 and joined a law firm. And so that's how he began his roots there. And that's why I was born and raised there. And my mom moved out from the East Coast to attend U of A. Her parents had moved out to Lake Havasu. And so that's where my parents met. And I was born in 1985 and stayed there through my whole childhood, and obviously went to elementary, middle, and high school there. And, just quickly about my father, he's probably the main reason I am where I am in terms of basketball. He is a basketball junkie, played a little bit, and was really the one that kind of created and fostered my love for the game.
With that, let's talk about, tell us, everybody's a little different growing up. Tell us about what kind of kid were you in high school?
I was a great kid. I can't say the same for my sister, but no, I'm joking. But I went to a high school that was different from my middle school in terms of who was feeding into it. So I went with a lot of new kids, and it took me a little bit to kind of get comfortable and find my way, just with a new social circle and kind of being in that new environment. But again, basketball and being a part of the program, I played varsity basketball for 3 years. And it was a really great experience. We had a really good team. I had a great high school coach who is in the Arizona High School Hall of Fame, a guy from Brooklyn, New York, actually, and won about 650 games in high school. But in terms of what type of kid I was, I would say I was a pleaser, both in the classroom and with my coaching staff. I was the firstborn, so I think I was a little less volatile than my sister, who came behind me a couple of years. And, after I kind of broke my parents down in high school, she'd probably reap the benefits of some of that. But I was, knock on wood, a pretty good kid, stayed out of trouble, pretty much focused a lot on basketball, and had a really good group of friends that I grew up with and that I was able to graduate high school with. And, I feel pretty fortunate about my experience that way.
So talk about your senior year, high school, and then now you're going to find a college. And how did you end up finding your college?
Yeah, it's honestly a really fun story. So I played both basketball and baseball in high school, and played varsity my sophomore year in both, and it was pretty much an even level player across both sports. And it wasn't until the end of my junior year of basketball where we won the state championship, and we ended up being ranked in the top 25 USA Today. We were 29-1, had a really good team. And we had a baseball game the next day. We had a baseball game the next day, and we had 4 guys on our basketball team who also played baseball. And I remember going out to practice and getting ready for the game. And just my passion for baseball just wasn't there because of the amount of success we had basketball wise. I had some personal success as well throughout that season. And so that was my first year. I actually decided not to play baseball that year and focused on AAU basketball for the first time. And I had never played AAU before, which, nowadays is really unique. Most people are playing AAU basketball by the time they hit 4th or 5th grade. But that was the first time that I really had the opportunity to play in front of college coaches, and got a little bit of recognition, a little bit of recruitment. But really it came down to, in my senior year, either going to Columbia University, who wasn't very good, to be honest, but they were coached by a guy who you probably remember, Armand Hill, who spent a lot of years in the NBA. And so I appreciated the fact that he was interested in me and wanted me to be a part of his program. And I also was getting recruited by St. Mary's College in Moraga as a walk-on. And so I took a visit to St. Mary's and had a great time and really enjoyed the guys within the program, as well as Coach Bennett, Coach Kyle Smith, and a couple of the other staff members. And after that weekend, I just told my dad and my parents, I was like, hey, you know what, this is where I want to be. I didn't want to take the opportunity to go travel to the East Coast. I look back on it now that I'm a parent, and I kind of giggle because I'm sure my dad was and my mom were disappointed and frustrated that I wouldn't go look at the Ivy League school that I wouldn't have been able to get into if it weren't for basketball. But it just wasn't what I was looking for at the time. And so that's when I made the decision really in the fall of my senior year that I was going to go and attend St. Mary's College in Moraga.
So now you're at St. Mary's. Talk about what you did when you were there and kind of how you worked your way up.
Yeah, I look back at it now, being over a decade into my coaching career, and my story was just really, it was interesting. And I say the odds of it happening the way it did were not very good looking back on it. I think Coach Bennett tried to cut me about 6 or 7 times and get me to transfer to somewhere else. But I came in as a freshman, again, as a walk-on, and I had probably an irrationally high level of self-confidence in regards to the fact that I was going to earn a role and find a way onto the court with this team. And, I got hit with reality pretty quick in terms of realizing how difficult it was going to be. In my freshman year, I remember to this day, I walked on our first weight workout. Coach Bennett used to weigh us, when we got there, and he weighed me, and I was 158 pounds. And he looked at me and was like, man, he's like, I knew you were skinny. I didn't know you were that skinny. You got a lot of work to do. And that was kind of the first message I got from him, my first day. But that first year was really a learning experience. And I worked hard to gain weight and to kind of try to get more comfortable against bigger, stronger, more athletic players. But it was tough, and I had a lot of, I would say, a lot of days where I was concerned that maybe I wasn't going to be able to do it, or I wasn't going to make it. And then that next year, which was my redshirt freshman year, I redshirted my first year, played a little bit early on the year because we had some injuries and some guys that were, in some trouble academically, and played in some big wins, got to play, and we beat Cal at Cal. We got to play a couple games in Madison Square against Memphis, Mississippi State, and kind of got a good taste for playing in college. And when those guys came back, I kind of got pushed back out of the rotation, but I was still, a part of the group and really instrumental part of practice. And our team that year was really successful. We won 26 games. We went to the NCAA tournament. And so I was able to kind of get that experience and understand how hard it is to be good and kind of get a taste for that. And so really after that, we lost about 4 or 5 really good players to graduation. And after that season, I became a 3-year starter. And we had some years where we were kind of building back up. We won 17 games 2 years in a row, but we weren't as good. Obviously, we didn't make the tournament. But, we were kind of building back up with some young players. And my senior year was when we probably had the biggest recruiting coup in St. Mary's history, when they brought in this little guard from Australia by the name of Patty Mills and paired him with some of the other good young players we had in our program. And I give myself credit to this day because I was really smart. Coach Bennett asked me, he's like, do you want to play point guard this year? I was like, well, no, I want to play off the ball because I know I'm not going to beat this kid out. So I was able to slide over to the 2, and Patty and I started 32 games together in the backcourt. I think we went 25-7, played in the NCAA tournament, got highly ranked as I think 19th at one point during the season. And it was just an amazing, incredible experience. And, Patty obviously still playing and doing really well, playing in the NBA. And this is almost 13, 14 years later. So it was an experience that I really feel like I needed to go through some of the difficulties of not playing and having to get a lot tougher and figuring out kind of who I was early on in my career to get to what I was able to do at the end. And I do owe a lot to Coach Bennett and Kyle for that, because they didn't take it easy on me. I think they really challenged me. And I thought there were times where they were probably a little too hard on me, but now looking back as a coach, I think I knew it all came from a really good place, and they saw some potential in me, and they knew I wasn't going to make it if I wasn't tough. And so they really challenged me to become that. And I'm not sure I ever got all the way there, but I definitely progressed, and it paid off in a big way in terms of, playing for 3 years and playing a lot.
Can you talk about, now that you've graduated, What were you thinking? Because you did end up going playing overseas.
Yeah, it was. I'll be honest, I didn't even think about that until my senior year, and I got off to a really good start my senior year. Again, when that Millis kid came in, I seemed to get a lot more open shots. And, one thing I could do is make an open three, and I was getting more interest from agents, and the fact that I come from a Jewish household, I was able to use my Jewish faith to an advantage, to be honest, because I was able to make what's called aliyah and become an Israeli citizen. And in Israel at that time, and I still believe it's the same way now, they had what a lot of people that play European basketball understand is the Russian rule, which means you have to have two native citizens on the court at the same time for the team to be able to play. So I was able to go over to Israel and play as an Israeli. And so that gave me quite a bit of an advantage in terms of being a pro, because it gave teams the option to really have another American on their roster. And so as I had some success that senior year, I started talking to some different agents and kind of thinking about, wow, this is actually a path I might be able to take. And, finished up the year, tried out with a couple clubs, and had the opportunity to get a 2-year contract from a team called Maccabi Haifa, which was a kind of up and coming team in Israel that had an American owner, a guy that was passionate, had a lot of money, and was able to invest and really try to get good. And so that first year of playing in Israel, we brought in some really, really talented American players, 2 McDonald's All-Americans, guys that, were playing at South Carolina, Villanova. We had a really, really talented young player named Davon Jefferson, who played at SC, who was an NBA level player, just was a little, wasn't ready yet age-wise, and, just had to kind of get his feet under him. And we just had an awesome experience, and ended up going to the championship game in Israel playing Maccabi Tel Aviv. And we had a 7-point lead in the third quarter of the championship game on their home floor before losing a really, really close game. But it really wasn't until that spring, summer where I even thought I had a chance to go play overseas. And when that opportunity did present itself, I was pretty excited to take advantage of it and kind of experience that.
So talk about how long you played over there and why you decided to leave.
So I kind of went into it with the idea, like, I'm going to go after this and I'll play as long as I can and as long as it makes sense, both from like a professional development and career perspective, because I did understand that when I came back, I was going to have to, quote unquote, like start over in some form or fashion, whether it was working in the professional world or get into coaching. So I had a really good first year. And then my second year didn't go as well. We actually lost a guy named Deron Perkins, who played at Santa Clara, who was the real point guard of our team that first year. He was an awesome player, very similar to Rajon Rondo, a little bigger. And he got signed by Tel Aviv because he was doing so well. And so we brought in actually a little Israeli point guard to our team for that second year, which was kind of the death of my career, because they were never going to play 2 little Jewish guys together in the backcourt. So they knew we wouldn't be able to guard anybody or keep anybody in front. And so I didn't play as much, and our team wasn't as good. We weren't as strong. But it wasn't really until about April of that year where one of our managers of the team brought me in and said, "Hey, Todd, I thought we were going to be able to kind of get through this without any issues, but the Israeli army wants you to report." And I said, I'm not really comfortable with that. And they're like, "Well, that's part of making Aliyah. Once you make Aliyah, you have, 6 weeks of basic training and 6 months of service that you have to provide the government. And then they'll decide what you do. You're a little older, they'll probably let you go, but da-da-da." So obviously, I love the opportunity to play basketball. I didn't really love it to the point where I wanted to enter the Israeli army for it. And so my one experience with the Israeli army, in early May, we were getting ready for the playoffs. And I was kind of living my best life over in Israel. I had kind of long hair with my little Jewish fro, if you would want to refer to it as that. And they just said, "Hey, you need to go down to Netanya," which is the town where all the young military personnel reported, and, meet with a few people and cross some T's, dot some I's, and then they're going to let you go. And so I take the bus down there with like 70, 18-year-olds. And I'm just really concerned and having no idea what's going to happen once I get there. And so I get there and they get us off the bus and they kind of start shuffling us into lines. And I tried to tell one of the supervisors, like, hey, I play for Maccabi Haifa. I'm here to just, and they didn't care. And so they just put me in line over here. I said, well, what's this for? And they're like, well, you need a haircut. And I said, no. Like they're releasing me. Like I have practice tonight at 6. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So go in line and I'm in the short line. Next thing I go, I'm in a barber chair and they're buzzing my head and just completely taking off all my lettuce up top. And so that hurt me. That was about 8 months of hair that I lost in about a 2-minute span. And then I said, hey, wanted to see who I could talk to about just getting out of there. And they're like, well, you need to go take your dental x-rays. And so I said, okay. And then I go. And so I asked the guy, hey, why do I need to take dental x-rays? And he's like, well, in case we lose you in battle, like we need a way to identify you when the time comes. And I said, well, I need to get out of here as soon as I can because this is not what I signed up for. And so finally, around 5 o'clock that day, they let me go and they're like, hey, you got to come back tomorrow. I hitchhiked from Netanya back to Tel Aviv, swear to God, and met my father and one of my other buddies that were out there and kind of told them what was going on. And then I got somebody from the team involved the next day and we got it all figured out. But really after the year, it was either enter the Army or head home. And so that was that. And I decided to make my return to the United States in the summer of 2010.
That sounds like a very wise move. So now that you're back in the United States, what are you thinking? Do you know you want to coach, or did you know what you wanted to do?
You know what? It was a really interesting time for me because I was kind of a homebody in Israel. I probably didn't take as much advantage of it as I should from a social standpoint. Too many late nights talking to people back here instead of, going out and enjoying the nightlife. And one of the things, I thought I did want to coach, but at the same time, I felt like I had missed out on some things. And so I wanted to kind of just get back to the Bay Area, where a lot of my friends who I had graduated with had kind of started their professional careers and were having some fun. And so I'd entertained an opportunity to go work with Kyle at Columbia when he was the head coach there, Kyle Smith. And then Randy actually had something at St. Mary's, but I just wasn't ready to jump right in. And so I had an opportunity to go work at IMG in the college sports marketing arm of their company. And so I did the corporate thing for a little bit there, and it was fun. And, it allowed me some freedoms on the weekends, and, that was all nice and everything. And then I had an opportunity to go work at Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area and in a promotion of sorts. And when I got there, that was a suit and tie deal every day, Monday through Friday. That was a sit at your desk until 5:30 on Friday, regardless of what's going on. And that was kind of the job where I'm like, you know what, like, I don't think this is for me. And after about 5 or 6 months of not really enjoying myself at Comcast and kind of trying to do the corporate thing for 2 years, I kind of had like a very early life crisis and kind of sat down with my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, I think if I want to try this coaching thing, this is kind of my window. And if I don't do it now, I was concerned that it was going to be hard to get back in to the basketball world. Cause the further you are away, the more disconnected you become and the harder it is. And so Kyle, who was still at Columbia at the time, he had one of his staff members named Kobe Altman, who's now the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers, leave his staff to go work at the Cavs. And so I reached out to Kyle, and him and I were kind of, we had gone back and forth a few times before. So it was kind of a sensitive deal. And I just said, hey, I've thought long and hard about this, and I do think I would like an opportunity to give it a shot. If you have anything available on your staff that you'd be willing, that you think I'd be a good fit for, let me know. And he had a director of basketball operations position open. And, I was kind of hoping that I would be thought of as an assistant at the time. But beggars can't be choosers. And, the opportunity available was ops. And Megan and I, my wife, talked about it for a while, and we were like, you know what, we didn't have kids. We didn't have a lot of things that were quote unquote tying us down to the Bay Area. And we had been living together for about 2 years, and we're like, you know what, let's give it a shot. Why not? This is a once in a lifetime type opportunity. So we picked up our stuff in the span of about a week or two and moved back to New York. And I joined Kyle's staff, and I think it was 2012 in August, and worked with him for 2 years there. My first year as ops, and then my second year I was promoted to the second assistant, and that was really kind of where my coaching career started.
What was the hardest thing you think you learned about coaching?
In that first experience, you mean, or just
just that you thought was like, wow, this could be really hard.
Yeah, I think the same thing that I learned then is still the same now, in the sense of coaching is one of those professions that you get out of it what you put into it. And I think coaching it's not a job. Like, if you think about coaching as a job, you're going to stink at it and you're not going to be very good. It's got to really be a part of your life and a part of your family and your DNA. And I think, the fact that, that when I took the job in August and really just kind of, I was loving every second of it, because I felt, I was a part of a team and part of an organization and part of something, working to become part of the greater good with others. But, we were working and clipping film on Sundays, and we were, doing a bunch of things until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And then we'd have workouts at 6 a.m. And once I realized, that it's never going to be confined within a box. It's going to be all over the place. And once you embrace that, and understand that, you're not going to live a quote unquote typical life, I think it becomes a lot easier, is not the right word, but it makes a lot more sense. And so I think just kind of understanding, or kind of learning what type of mindset you have to have when you're in coaching, especially, within the college landscape, because you have so many different areas that you touch and so many different things you have to worry about and work on. Once you really ingratiate yourself to that type of environment, I think it becomes a lot easier. But that was really it. It was just the type of, dedication, commitment, and just kind of outside the box lifestyle that you have to live was probably the most difficult thing in terms of the transition.
Coaching, unless you're very fortunate, it's all about travel. Talk about how you ended up at Auburn and then you ended up at USF.
Yeah. So my, my Auburn experience was incredible. And so I was fortunate enough again, and because of my Jewish faith, to play in the 2005 Maccabi games in Australia. And Stephen Pearl, who played at Tennessee for his father, Bruce, was on that team. And we just became really good friends. We hit it off. He was a good, scrappy player. Our team was good. We had a lot of success. And Bruce actually came out to our training camp and worked with us for a couple of days. And I was still playing in college at the time. And I just became like really attracted to his personality. And he was super engaging and like treated me like he'd known me forever, even though we had just met, like 10 minutes before. And I just was always really attracted to his personality. And then in 2009, Bruce coached our USA Maccabi team in Israel. And we won the gold medal. I played with guys like, Dan Grunfeld, who, Bill, I'm sure his dad, Ernie, really well. And we had a really fun team, and Bruce coached that team. We win the gold. And it was just, once in a lifetime experience where you're just in the foxhole with these guys, where with a lot of pride, a lot of great memories. And Bruce and I really hit it off. And I told him, I hoped that at one point, that I would be able to work with him. And obviously, when he was at Tennessee, it ended kind of abruptly, and he was out of the profession for a couple of years working at ESPN. And then he got the Auburn job. And that coincided with the same time that we had finished up my second year with Kyle at Columbia. And we had a really good year, won like 23 games, made it to a postseason, a tournament. And, Bruce called and just said, hey, I'm looking to build my staff with guys that I know and trust, and I think can, help me elevate this place. So, would you have interest coming down here? And I said, heck yeah. I think, the two things obviously that drew me to Auburn was obviously the level, Auburn and the SEC, and the SEC, as we all know, is the closest thing to professional sports that we have in college. They treat everything there, from the facilities to student athlete experience to coaches' salaries, that everything's at an insane level there. So that along with being able to go work again with Bruce and, obviously being incredibly grateful for my experience with Kyle, but I got to play for Kyle for 5 years at St. Mary's. I got to work with him for 2, and I felt like I had a really good understanding of what makes him special. And so I was like, all right, this would be an opportunity for me to go learn from somebody else who does it incredibly different. They're complete opposites. And so I thought it would really broaden kind of my skill set in terms of coaching and kind of differentiating ways to do things. And so when Bruce offered me the director of ops role there, jumped at it and had a great first year with them in terms of learning. And then after my first year, he promoted me to an assistant coaching position. And we just had a great time. We didn't have a lot of success because we were rebuilding the program, but we started recruiting really, really good players. Guys like Davion Mitchell, who just got drafted in the top 10 by the Kings. We signed him at Auburn. He played a year there. Chuma Okeke, who was a lottery picker, I think 15 or 16 for the Orlando Magic 2 or 3 years ago. And then guys like Jared Harper, who's played on a 2-way. We started recruiting great kids who were really good players. And, when I left Auburn to come back and work with Kyle 2 years after that, they made it to the Final Four. So I felt really good about being a part of that foundation. But so at that point, having good success in terms of kind of building things. And then I was, again, wanting to kind of get back west. Megan and I were excited to kind of start a family together. And, coaching's funny because if you spend too much time in a certain area, especially in college, like it's kind of hard to kind of get back to where you want to go or to move. And so, Kyle gets the USF job. So I started talking to him, and then I actually interviewed with the coach at Stanford who had just got the job about an assistant position there. And I thought I was going to get it, to be honest. I was pretty excited. And he calls me on the morning of the national championship game and, says, hey, great getting to know you. I think you're going to be a great coach. I'm going to go a different direction. And to be honest, it kind of gave me a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was a little pissed off. And so I reached back out to Kyle and I said, hey, if you think that this makes sense and you think this is good for you and good for me and my career, like I'd like to come back with you and help you kind of start building USF back. And so within 48 hours of that conversation, I accepted the associate head position with Kyle. And I made my way back here, and my wife hated me because she was about 37 weeks pregnant at the time. And she was sitting there in Auburn, Alabama, as I was coming back here with Kyle, just hitting the ground running. And I'm fortunate that my father-in-law is a great man and flew out and drove back with her because she was too close to get on an airplane. And all worked out well. And our son, she made it back here, and our son was born here in the Bay. But yeah, it was just kind of natural. And Bruce was great about everything and understood why I wanted to kind of come back, and was super supportive of that, which made it easier to do it. But that was kind of just the transition from Columbia to Auburn, and kind of why I joined Kyle here at USF.
Give me your thoughts. Assistant coach, head coach, what are you thinking?
When I got the opportunity?
Yes, when you became head coach.
I was elated, grateful, thankful, just incredibly excited. I think it's and you know me well enough now to know that I'm a pretty passionate, knock on wood, like confident, like I believe in what we were doing. I thought, Kyle did a really, really good job of building this program back up and giving it a really, really firm foundation. And I think that's something that was missing when we got here in 2016. The program had some talent, but it didn't have student athletes that were necessarily passionate about the University of San Francisco. Their priorities, I could argue, weren't necessarily aligned in the right way. But Kyle and our staff, I thought, did a good job of identifying, student athletes that would appreciate this opportunity, that would find the value of not only getting their degree from here, but just the family and the alums and just the greater USF community. And, we won 20 games in our first year, which we were really surprised about. We thought it was going to take a little bit of time, but the league was a little down that year. And, with a pretty young team, we did really well. And then, second and third year kind of continued on that trajectory. And so, I think you have to get lucky. You have to get lucky at times, but you have to be good also to get lucky. And I think that's a good way to kind of describe my situation, in the sense of, Kyle leaned on me a lot when he was here, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I think it gave confidence to the administration on the academic and athletic side here at USF that I would be able to continue building with the right type of student athlete and the right people on my staff, and the type of people that would appreciate what this place has to offer. As I'm sure you would imagine from your times as a coach, as an assistant, a lot of the times you think you have all the answers and you think you know what's best, and then you get thrown in that chair and you realize real quick you don't know nearly as much as you think you do. And so there was a lot of learning on the fly, but I've just really loved every second of that part. And I was fortunate to retain a couple key staff members through the transition, and most importantly, we kept every student athlete in the program that had his eligibility and had the ability to return. And so that made the transition a lot easier. And I think that's why we were able to have continued success.
Before we talk about this season, talk about the support you get from Charlie Cross, Father Paul, and how important that is.
Yeah, I think it's just it's college. I'll start it by saying college basketball, I could argue has changed more in the last 2 to 3 years than it had in the previous 20. And what I mean by that is from all the different conference realignments to the NIL rule, to all the transfer flexibility that they're allowing now, there's just a lot of new variables that have kind of popped up in our profession. And I think it's going two ways in our sport. And what I mean by that is there's schools that are truly investing and, kind of taking more of an SEC, Big 12, Big 10 type approach with the way they're funding their programs, the way they're supporting their student athletes, the way they're traveling. They're treating it like a professional sport, which, again, with quote unquote amateurs, some could argue that may or may not be the right way, but it's reality. It's what's happening. And so there's going to become a divide here, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 years with who's really in and who's really out. And I think, USF we've done a lot of great things from, the new renovation here in the Sobrato Center to getting our practice facility approved, which will be a really, really beneficial instrument for our program to use, whether it's in recruiting or in day-to-day operations and helping our guys get more opportunities to get better. So I think a lot of the heavy lifting has been done, and what's going to continue to be important is the day-to-day operations, which I think sometimes at times gets kind of lost, where that's equally as important to me in terms of being able to continue to build this program, is making sure that we're doing everything we can, because the reality is, we're going up against Gonzaga, we're going up against BYU, we're going up against St. Mary's, we're going up against Santa Clara, and these programs are they're investing at a very high level to try to make sure their programs are in good shape. And I think we're heading on that path, and we're going to have to continue to invest and put our program and the women's basketball program in a great position to be successful moving forward.
Talk about this year. Talk about our team. Talk about why we're excited.
Yeah, this year is knock on wood. I think this year we have the potential to have one of the strongest teams that we've had here on the Hilltop in quite a while. Even preceding when I was here, and going back to the early 80s even, because I just really think our combination of our veteran leadership in the backcourt between Jamari Bouye and Khalil Shabazz, I think both those guys have a lot of experience, have played a lot of minutes within our program, have experienced a lot of winning, and know what it takes to be able to produce and play at a high level. And an area where, myself and our staff hadn't done a good enough job really before last year, where I think we got a lot of things right this year, was just recruiting in the front court. And, we went out and really used the transfer market to our advantage this offseason. We were able to bring in 4 guys that are that were ready players that have played a lot of minutes Division One. Most of them have been in successful programs and have contributed in a big way. And so we were able to add a guy like Yalian Masalski, who graduated from San Diego, who averaged about 10 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, and is a guy that we always we know really well. We played against him 9 times, and we feel like he's an incredible defender. I think he's going to be a guy that can really, really help us in the low post offensively, and a guy that we can throw it into and can get a basket, something we didn't have last year. And just a really, really good, old, tough player. And then a guy like Patrick Tape, who was at Duke last year, a Columbia graduate, a guy who has just really good potential. And he's going to continue to get more and more comfortable as the year goes on. But another 6'9", 6'10", 240-pound body, a physical athlete, a guy that will match up really well against guys from BYU and Gonzaga. And then a guy like Zane Meeks, who transferred in from Nevada, Reno, who is actually, one of my really, really fun guy to coach. He's a confident kid. I said this about myself earlier. He's irrationally self-confident, but sometimes you need guys like that, especially for a guy like him who can really shoot it. He's never seen a shot he doesn't like. And, he really is comfortable letting it go. And then the last guy, Vova Markovetsky, a 7'2" transfer from Washington State, a guy that really wanted to come here out of high school. 7'2", 265, just wide body, physical, strong. We just didn't have this size and physicality last year. And so I would just say my excitement really stems from the fact that I think we're way deeper. We're more well-rounded. And I think we've raised our floor with the fact that we've added a lot of front court scoring to support, Jamari and Khalil and Gabe Stefanini, Rishwain, Dima, guys like Josh Coonan, guys on the perimeter who are all really good players.
Stevie.
I wanted to go back. I'm excited about USF this year as well. One thing I did want to go back is, and I'm sure some of it's obvious if you see the demeanor of them, but how are Kyle Smith and Bruce Pearl different? And what you learn from each of them, and how do you apply it to where you are now?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Kyle, I would call him, he's a little bit like the nutty professor in the sense of he's a super, super bright dude. And his mind is turning 24/7 about where he can find, an incremental advantage against his opponents, whether it's in recruiting, whether it's in scheduling, whether it's in rest time after practice. Kyle is always trying to be 2 steps ahead. I would say the same thing about him and Randy in the sense of I think they have mastered the art of running an 11-month college basketball program. And what I mean by that is, guys, their guys are getting better all year. They're working hard in the spring, they're working hard in the summer. And I think they really do move the needle, and, they move past some guys because of that. And they're just really, through their nearly 30 years in this profession, I think really have a good feel and understanding for that. Last piece on that is just recruiting wise. I think they do a really good job of identifying guys that will fit what's important to them. And, a guy like Jamari Bouye is a great example of that. He had no other Division I offers out of high school. But we saw a young man who was a really good kid, had great parents, intelligent, really great basketball IQ, good athleticism, and good length. We thought he'd grow. And sure enough, he comes here and he's a guy that has a chance to play in the NBA someday. I don't know if that's going to be next year, but I think he's a kid that has that potential. Whereas for Bruce, again, this is a 180 deal. Bruce is the exact opposite, the type that we might not know what we're doing in practice that day till about an hour before, practice starts. And his approach, I would argue, was more motivational. He would get guys to run through a wall for him. And I think he would target those types of guys in recruiting where he felt like he could get them to really become bulldogs and pit bulls and go play for him. He was passionate about recruiting. He worked at it probably harder than 99% of the people in our profession. We spent, whereas in my program, we spent a lot of the fall working on individual and team development with our time. And Bruce spent most of that time on the road recruiting and waited until practice to really kind of pour into his team. And Bruce wasn't the most analytically savvy type guy, but he was open to it and, was willing to kind of use it where he thought it made sense. But again, like he was more recruiting focused, more passion focused. And he really understood the value of building around his program from a fan standpoint, from an alum standpoint. When we got there at Auburn, they talked about how they could barely get, 50 students to a game. And that's with a student body over 25,000. Our first year, we weren't very good, but we had a sold out student section every game. And that was because Bruce would go to the library during finals and pass out donuts, or would stand and go give pizza to students, walking through the student union, would go and hand out t-shirts at the rec, things like that. Those were the things where Bruce really, really thrived and understood. That's where he loved doing it, and he understood the value of spending time and energy on it. And that's why he's been able to build such good passion around his programs.
It's amazing. Yeah, you can see why he's successful.
Yeah.
Todd, talk about, you already talked about Megan a little bit. Let's talk about your family.
Yeah. I'm super fortunate with Megan. She was an Army brat growing up. Her dad was in the military, so she was moving everywhere. And, she actually was a great athlete, played volleyball at St. Mary's. And, she's just an amazing wife. I think, as you know, Bill, from your career, you have to have a very understanding, empathetic, and supportive wife to be successful in what we do. And I have that. And so I feel really fortunate, because without that, I'm not sure I could put as much time and energy into my job as I do. So she's wonderful and gives me a lot of confidence to do what I do. And then we have a 5-year-old son, Jacob, who's he's already a passionate athlete, loves baseball, loves golf, hoops, and soccer, probably in that order right now. And, is in the gym 5 or 6 times a week, just living his best life. And then he's a little like me. He's a little bit of a pleaser, a little more introverted, and but he's a great kid. And then our daughter Madison, who's 3, is the exact opposite. She's a chatterbox, will not ever listen to either parent, and I feel like she's going to be a challenge as she continues to grow up, and will probably be a little bit of a payback for what I ended up being towards the end of my high school career going into college. But she's awesome. And again, like a super fun loving kid and she loves sports also. And I assume she'll be a tomboy like her mom was growing up.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
I'm so excited this year. I'm anticipating no pressure, great things this year.
Yeah.
I know you are too.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Steve and I loved it. Obviously, we're going to be at every game.
Yeah.
So going to have a great year.
Thank you guys, Steve. It's great to meet you, my friend.
I'm looking forward to see you out there. Yeah.
And Bill, before I go, I just want to thank you, man, because I just appreciate your support. You've been awesome to me since I've had this opportunity. And I know how easy it would be for someone in your position with everything that you've accomplished over your career to have all the answers all the time. And the fact that you've continued to support me and what we're doing means a lot. So I appreciate you in a big way. And let's go to the tournament this year. I think that'll be a good resolution for all of us.
We're going.
We're going.
I love it.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Todd.
Talk about it.
Appreciate it.